not, like you said, we're not ever going to get into the Republicans or Democrats and all that kind of stuff. It's really just depends on what is good for us and in our profession.
This episode of the Coach's Call podcast is presented by Answers, ANSRS, the fastest, most accurate data and video management system in football, used by major college programs and high schools all across Texas. Instant insights from Answers speeds up the game planning process during the week, ensures that the tendency data is accurate, and provides play callers with real confidence to make the best calls during the game. Visit www.answers.ai, that's ANSRS.ai, to learn how Answers can help you gain a real competitive advantage next season.
Hi, y'all. Welcome to the Coach's Call, the official podcast of the THSCA, where every conversation is about helping coaches help kids. I'm Libby Pacheco, COO of the Texas High School Education Foundation, and we're glad you're with us. Before we get to today's conversation, here's a few quick reminders. We encourage you to get involved with our Educate, Excel, Play campaign as we continue to promote and defend education-based athletics across Texas. Also, don't forget to check out the Texas Coaches Leadership Tour. When you purchase a ticket to any one of the 9 events, you'll receive access to the replay of all 9 sessions at the end of the tour. And finally, remember, as coaches, we set the standard year-round through sportsmanship, professionalism, and the example we model for our athletes and communities. So thank you to all of our programs that are engaged in continuing to lead the Texas way. We are making a difference in sportsmanship in Texas. If you want more information about any of these events, don't forget to visit our website. And now, here's today's episode of the Coach's Call.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Coach's Call. I'm Chris Daly, and today, once again, we have some great guests. And I'm, in fact, going to hand the microphone over to Brian Polk, the Chief Operating Officer for THSCA. Brian, if you could, introduce yourself to the crowd, let them know what it is you do, and then introduce your guest.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. And I, too, want to welcome everybody back to the Coach's Call, which is the official podcast of the Texas High School Coaches Association, helping coaches help kids. And my name is Brian Polk. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the THSCA. And today, we're beginning an important conversation about the context of coaching, especially in an evolving education-based athletic environment. Coaching, no matter what level it happens at, it's a full-time job. We pour ourselves into our staffs, our student athletes, and our communities every day, and in ways that often do not show up on the scoreboard or the performance sheet. However, as we all know, our profession faces a number of challenges: budget cuts, attacks on education-based athletics, the rise of sports academies, declining enrollment, and of course the ESA vouchers. So while these challenges are real, they're not the ones we can afford to shy away from. Instead, we've got to stay informed. We've got to stay engaged and continue to educate ourselves on these issues. And most importantly, we've got to actively promote the value and the impact of education-based and community-based extracurricular activities, because nothing else can provide young people with the same opportunities to grow, to learn, and develop life skills like we do. Today, we're going to begin with what we hope is a series of conversations about the context of coaching as it relates to some of these issues. And joining me today is our good friend of not only this show, but the THSCA in general, and that's Dr. Josh Childs from the University of Texas at Austin. He's joined the Coaching Call previously to talk about some of the research he's conducted with Everrise, and today I'm looking forward to discussing with him what it is like coaching in today's time. So Josh, welcome back to us.
Thanks, Brian, for having me, and good to be back with you all.
Yes, sir. So I'm gonna start off and shoot a question at you. So in our previous episode of the Coach's Call, you discussed some of the importance of having an effective coach within our schools and in our districts. Can you give a few examples of the importance of coaches and the value that they bring to our communities?
Yeah, coaching is so important because our coaches, especially in the state of Texas, aren't just coaches, they're educators, right? A lot of them are in our classrooms teaching some of our most important subjects to our students and student athletes. Some of them are administrators leading school buildings, maybe housed within central offices, doing important administrative work to support
Yep.
teachers and schools and communities and students, right? And some coaches also serve in paraprofessional roles and do other things like driving school buses or crossing guards, right? And so coaches are so important, but they're educators first, right? And I think when you have coaches like we do in the state of Texas that are educators first and really see themselves of educating both on and off the field or on and off the court or practice facility or wherever it is where they do these dual roles, it brings a lot of value to the community that folks know that their coaches care about their kids both academically and athletically. And so I think the importance of coaching and coaches is so important. And I think the value that is placed of coaches in the state of Texas is super important. And I know, Brian, you as a former coach, I think it's 17 years to be exact, with stops at Garland and Allen, Van Alstyne, and Byron Nelson. I'm curious, as we talk about the importance of coaches, like when you look at the differences between today's coaches and what coaches' experiences to back in the day, which probably for you feels like yesterday, when you were in the game, what stands out? Anything that's noticeably different or, that's changed?
Yeah, great comments, first of all, Josh. But I do think there are some differences, of course. And I also think, I want to say this, that every generation probably has these same conversations, right? And my generation was different than the generation before me. The generation that's currently coaching right now is a little bit different than when I came up. I do believe this: kids are still the same. In my opinion, kids still want discipline. They want structure, support, expectations. They want those and they need those. Now, they don't always act like it, but they do want those. They yearn for those, and I think that's why our profession is so important. Now, I do think society, to a degree, is a little bit different than when I started. We've got instant gratification. We've got the social exposure that is there now that wasn't there when I started, where you can get fake or false expectations. They see that stuff every day. And it's hard not to get a false sense of what's important sometimes for our young people. And because of that, I think we are dealing with some different mental issues with young people in today's world than maybe we did when I started out. I also think that educators have a little bit more on their plate, more so than when I started out. And a lot of times it's too much. There's a sense that we have lost the ability to have accountability as a whole, and which certainly causes a lot of these issues that we see being discussed in our school systems. But I do believe this: while those things are real, we can't just get caught up in what we don't have or what we don't like all the time. Again, those things are real, but if we focus on those things, we lose sight sometimes of our why and why we got into this profession. And I don't know anyone who got into this profession for any reason other than to make a positive impact on young people. And every day we still have that opportunity, regardless of what our title is, what level we might be coaching on, what school we're coaching at. We still have the opportunity to come into contact with young people every single day and make an impact on them. And we've got to make a difference in the lives of young people. And we've got to keep that first and foremost in our mindset. So things are different to a degree. We may look at things as being a little bit more difficult and having more on our plates, but we still get to have time with the young people every single day. And that's really and truly why everybody got into this profession to begin with. Anything you want to add to that, Josh? I mean,
No, one thing you say about the instant gratification, I think often too of like that sports and life don't come with a reset button or a restart button, right? And I think,
very true.
I think that's changed. Even though you're younger than I am, way younger than I am. But I think, right, like thinking about this idea of like how do we get our young people to really think and experience life where it can't just be turned on and off with a switch, right? And you get to restart again, right? And like, so how do you build from your successes, and how do you learn from your losses, and the role that a coach does in helping kids understand that? I think is super important.
No, I 100% agree. A great comment. So let's move on a little bit. Let's talk some politics, which I know is going to
Oh
perk some
boy,
people
here
up
we
out
go.
there. Yeah, here we go. And want to know, in your opinion, Josh, why should coaches be engaged citizens when it comes to local politics and how it impacts our profession?
Yeah, and I know politics is like one of those things that you don't talk about oftentimes around the dinner table, right? It's like one of the three things, right? It's politics. Maybe you throw in sports there, especially if you're a Duke fan. But I would say there's a famous phrase, right, in political science, that all politics are local, right? And so for coaches who are, as I said in the previous question you asked, are educators first, I think being engaged in knowing what's happening, like there's stuff happening in Washington, D.C., but we're far removed from that, geographically, right? Even though what happens in Washington, D.C. can and does impact us, right? And then not everyone is as close to the capital like I am here in Austin, right? And what happens in Austin does impact and affect educators and coaches as well, right? But all politics are local, right? And so I think having coaches that are engaged, that understand what's happening, how decisions are being made at their school board, within the larger community, like a city council, can really impact not only themselves as educators, right, and what happens in their day-to-day practices and lives, but also their students and families, right? And so, no matter what side of the aisle or aisles people come from, I think it's important that coaches are engaged and that they're engaged politically, right? No matter from what stance or what viewpoint they come from, right? Because I think an engaged population, engaged coaching profession is a powerful coaching profession. And our coaches have strong voices because for many, many, many coaches across the state, it is them that represent that community, right? It's the coach, whether it's the head football coach, or head basketball coach, or head volleyball coach, or head tennis coach, whatever, they represent the community, they represent the students, and more importantly, they represent the values and the mission, right, of that community and school district. And so that's why I feel like it's important for coaches to be engaged, no matter where they sit politically, because all politics are local, and what happens at the local level will impact them and their students and the other educators they work with, the larger community and families as well. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I know that the work that you all do at THSCA advocates for your members to be engaged coaches, right? And to also vote purple. So, for our broader audience, can you explain what vote purple means and how voting purple helps and supports coaches statewide?
Yeah, sure. And to reiterate what you said, politics, it's not something that we necessarily want to be heavily involved with, right? I mean, you said that. And, most of us at best probably have a surface level knowledge of what's going on in the political world from a detail standpoint. But we've got to change that mindset. And I've had to change my mindset since I started out in this profession. And after I went to work at the UIL and now being here with THSCA, I've been able to see that really our lack of involvement from professional standpoint in the political world it's allowed people that maybe have no education background. Our lawmakers, certainly no background in education-based athletics or fine arts. They're the ones making the decisions on what we're able to do on a daily basis. So we've got to do a better job of being involved, and that's really what Vote Purple is. It's really an initiative for educators to stay informed and stay educated on the policies that are affecting you, that are affecting us and what we do. And it's a campaign to encourage our members to go vote for our education-based and community-based schools. Go vote in favor of what we do from a professional standpoint. And we're not, like you said, we're not ever going to get into the Republicans or Democrats and all that kind of stuff. It's really just depends on what is good for us and in our profession. And so that's really our goal. And we want men and women working in this profession to go vote, be active, so that our voice is heard. So vote purple is voting and supporting policies that align with our beliefs, and that's pretty much what it is. But I would say we've got to do a better job as educators of being more involved, like you said, in local politics, whether that's a school board or whether that's all the way up to our legislators that are making rules and regulations, and make sure your voice is getting heard.
That's great.
Moving on a little bit here. So, Josh, we this kind of ties into a couple of things we've already talked about, but we've got some growing tension between the school-based, the education-based athletics model, and the rapidly expanding private youth sports and academy market. So, what is a fundamental value that education-based athletics provides to our student athletes here in Texas?
Yeah, it's so fascinating that you asked that question because I'm not sure how aware the broader community is has seen or has experienced what this market looks like for youth sports. It is becoming much and much more elite, much and much more expensive, and it is much, much more requiring families to make choices in terms of how they engage, right? And so it kind of tying in with the last question about how all politics are local. This is an example, while not a capital P politic, right? This is a local
Yep.
politics, political issue that our coaches should be aware of, right? And I think one of the things that people should know about the value of education-based athletics is that, for one, education comes before athletics in that phrase alone, right? That's education-based athletics. It's not athletics, period, right? And so folks should know, right, when they see that, when they see their local traditional public school or schools that are modeled in that kind of school-based, education-based athletic, that there's educational forefront in that, right? There's standards, there's accountability in some ways, a tie to that athletic program, the athletic market, right? And of course, we see news will report on various types of issues that some schools or districts will have and so forth. And it's not to say that everywhere is perfect, right? But like that is to say that there is a standard, there is a model that education comes first, right? And then the second thing I would add then too is that goes to who's participating in education-based athletics. They're student athletes, right? They're students first. We see them as students. We see them as, I almost say it's uh, we think about students as a way of like humans, right? So our students are actual individuals with beating hearts, with other lives besides their sport and what they can do performance-wise on a field or on a court or within a time frame of a game, right? And so I think that's super important for folks to think about the value, right? Because coaches are educators first, and because our student athletes are students first, we should believe and hold to a standard that we are putting education and the value of education and the potential of education and what education can give to families and communities at the forefront. And I think that's why it's so important. And one thing that as I'm answering this question, I'm thinking about, Brian, is I'm curious is as the youth sports market becomes more specialized and commercialized, and let me, before I go on with this question, I would say too, is that within education-based athletics, there's opportunities for students to engage at all levels, right? And in a lot of ways, the entry point can be much more broader, right? So I'm interested in running track and field in seventh grade, or I'm interested in doing volleyball in 11th grade, right? There's opportunities that can exist for that may not exist within the private sort of youth sports market, right? And so as this youth sports market becomes more specialized and commercialized, I'm wondering how can Texas coaches, particularly those involved in education-based athletics, maintain their influence on a student athlete's long-term development without burning out either themselves or their student athletes? Because I think a fundamental question that's going to be have to be addressed in the coming years as more and more of these academies and youth sports markets open up is what's the burnout rate for coaches and student athletes as during this time? So what can Texas coaches within our schools do to maintain their influence without burning out themselves or their student athletes?
Well, and I think first and foremost, we go back to our very first conversation when we talked about, we've got to remember what our why is, and that has not gone away, and it never will. We are always going to have an opportunity every single day during our school day. Like I said, you may be a seventh grade B team coach, or you may be the athletic director, head football coach. You're going to have an opportunity to be around kids, and that's why we got in this profession. So that should keep, the positivity and the feel good within, amongst ourselves there at all times because we get that time. It may be an hour, it may be hours if you're in season, but we get that time to be with young people, and I think that's really really important. And I think we talk about being able to tell our story and making sure that we do a better job of telling our story. And you told it a little bit while ago, talking about we are student athletes and everything that we have to offer in the public school systems, in the community-based school systems, and what we have to offer every single day when kids walk in the front building of that school. And we believe it's the best thing out there. It's the best thing that you can put your kids through. And we have got to make sure that we continue to compete. And I don't want to, I'm not completely answering the question about burnout right now, but I do think we've got to continue to make sure that we go compete. It's something we've always done in Texas. We've always been looked at it at having the best coaches, the best fine arts, the best athletes in the country. If you go ask college coaches who has the best structure in college ready athletes in the country, they're going to tell you that we do. So we've got to make sure that we get better and we maybe change some of the way things that we've done in the past to fit what's going on in today's society, like we've already talked about, and do a better job of competing and telling the story of what we're offering with our kids. We've always known that we're going to teach kids life skills. We're going to teach them accountability. We're going to have discipline. We're going to have structure. We're going to hug their neck. We're going to love on them. We're going to give them support if they don't have support at home. We've always known we do that. We now just have to do a little bit better job of getting that out there and telling our stories to others so that we can make sure these sports academies that maybe are just targeting like-minded individuals who are maybe only looking to go to college and looking for that D1 scholarship, that there's a lot more out there in development of young people than just those type of schools. And that's what we've always offered. So if we're losing kids, we got to find a way to keep them within rule. All right, we'll talk about the UIL later, right? But within rule, of course, doing it the right way. But we've got to find a way to think outside the box and get out of our comfort zone a little bit. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think more than ever we've got to do a better job of selling what we do in our programs outwardly to our community. We've got to have great lines of communication to everyone involved in our program. Parents, especially, they want to know what's going on with their young kids, with their sons and their daughters on a daily basis. And we've got to have great lines of communication to them and just celebrate and promote all the great things that we're doing in our programs, which is not something that coaches in general, it's not something we like to do. We don't like to brag on ourselves and talk about ourselves. We just like to go do. But we've got to change that mindset a little bit and do a better job of showing our academic accomplishments, our athletic accomplishments, what our kids are doing in the community with our community service projects. And we're doing all those things, Josh. They've been happening forever. That's what's made us so great here in the state of Texas. We just got to make sure that we keep the important things in line and that we're celebrating those things so that people see what we're doing every single day with our young people. And a little bit on those same lines, we talking about stories, and we always talk about what we've done, and we've realized, Josh, and you've been a huge help to this, that we've got to have some data to back some of the stuff that we do, right? To tell our stories, especially when we're dealing with maybe state legislators and even local legislators. But we rely heavily on data and academic partnerships to tell our story. So why is it important for coaches association like us to have a skin in the game when it comes to formal research and data collection?
Yeah, I'll answer this quickly, and you all have been just on the forefront on really leading the efforts around this. And I think it ties into some of the ways in which you've answered questions previously about being engaged and being engaged coaches, and what a way to model and be a role model around that with you all at THSCA. So I commend you and Libby and Joe and Glenn for the efforts you all have done with that. But I think, right, data helps inform decisions. Data helps secure funding and support. Data helps in telling the story.
Yep.
I got my PhD in Pittsburgh, and there's a famous driving sort of term that they use up there called the Pittsburgh left, where you make a left turn immediately when the light turns green, right? And if I were to stand here and tell you that, well, at this intersection, there's uh, everyone does a Pittsburgh left at this intersection right here, you'd be like, well, how many? And I say everyone. Well, how much is everyone? And when does everyone happen, right? But if I were to tell you between the hours of 3 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, during the heaviest part of rush hour, for every 10 cars, 8 of them at the start of a green light will do the Pittsburgh left. That gives you some actual data, right?
Yeah.
So then maybe that means we need to have a protected left turn signal before the other opposite lane goes, right? So that we can have a decrease in probably head-on collisions, right? And so forth, right? So data helps us make decisions, helps secures funding, but more importantly, helps support and tell the story. And I think that's why it's so important that an association like you, like y'all's, that has over 20,000, 26,000 coaches that are members, uh, uh, begin into this data processing and data collection and data sharing to help support coaches to really get the resources and support that coaches need so that they can do their job effectively. And that's to help kids, right? And help communities and so forth, right?
Sure.
And so I'd be curious to kind of understand how you all partner with other state and sports specific associations to advocate for coaches and promote education-based athletics.
Well, it's something that's really important to us. And one thing we like to say all the time is we're better together. We are better together. And so we strive to have a working relationship with really all of our sports specific associations, our AD associations. We try to keep them informed on really everything that we're doing, so that we all have, a unified voice, so to speak. And you know this, Josh, really over the last 6 or 7 years, we've really grown as an association, expanding what we do and better representing all sports, male and female, everyone underneath the UIL umbrella. We've done a better job as an association of being more inclusive of everyone. And, we 6 or 7 years ago when we started this, not all those groups like that. At first, they thought maybe we were trying to come in and kind of get in their lane and just completely take over. And I think they've seen now that that's certainly not what we were trying to do. We really and truly, number one, wanted to represent our namesake, the Texas High School Coaches Association, making sure that we were representing everybody. And we wanted to bring them into what we were doing as well. So they're involved in everything. If we have an advisory committee meeting in whatever sport it may be, because we've got them in sport, male and female, we always invite that sport specific association to those meetings as well so that they can hear the information that we're talking about. And we really, really think it's been very, very helpful. And it's allowed us to grow, but it's allowed us to have good working relationships with all of the other associations throughout the state of Texas. And in our last little conversation, we talked about doing a better job of telling our story. One of the big initiatives we have right now is something we have, it's called Educate, Excel, and Play. And we have every association in the state of Texas that is involved with that. Like I said, all of our sports specific association, along with our ADs association. And all it is it's an initiative that we're all sending out once a month to all of our members, ways that they can tell the story, ways that they can promote what they're doing in their programs to keep it at the forefront of what they're doing because we know they're busy. So we send out things that they can do. And we brought in every one of these associations into our office so they'd be a part of this. And it's something that's really, really helped us. And that's just one example, but very, very important to us to have a relationship because, like I said at the beginning, we are better together. And it's what's best for our coaches. And our overall motto to help coaches help kids. If all of us are on the same page and we're preaching the same language, then it's what's best for our coaches, which in turn is going to be good for our young people. On reflection, Josh, we covered a lot of ground today, regarding the data and the politics of the job. And I know this is going to be quick, but at the end of the day, it's about the kids and what is most encouraging. What's the most encouraging trend you see right now, really quickly, that should give our coaches hope for the generation?
That they have an association like you all, the THSCA, supporting them.
That's awesome. That's quick and to the point. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate that. Well, thank you for beginning this conversation with us, Josh, and for all the work that you're doing to help research and communicate the impact of coaching with the Texas High School Coaches Association. And to our listeners and to our coaches, thank you for what you do on the sidelines and in the hallways every single day. We look forward to seeing all of you in Houston this summer at coaching school. And hopefully we can continue these conversations in person. But until then, continue helping us execute the mission, which is helping coaches help kids, because that's what education-based athletics is all about. So thank you all for being a part of another Coach's Call. And Chris, we're going to kick it over to you.
Cool. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Josh. My takeaways there: we're better together. Vote purple. And the Pittsburgh left. I love that.
That's right.
There you go.
But I do want to say to the listeners, hey, please go out and share this show. Share it with some coaches who maybe aren't listening. Share it with some parents, some people in the community, because together, as Brian pointed out, we are better and we can accomplish a heck of a lot more. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much.
Hey coaches, did you know we're now offering shows for all sports? That's right, whether it's basketball, volleyball, softball, baseball, football, soccer, you name it, we've got you covered. If you're looking for a way to showcase your program, promote your players, and highlight the amazing things happening with your team, our coaches shows are the perfect solution. Plus, our business model lets you or your booster club raise money while building excitement and support for your program. Don't miss the opportunity to take your team's story to the next level. Find out how you can get your very own coaches show. Reach out to Chris at 713-269-4620 today. That's 713-269-4620, because every team deserves the spotlight. Hey, of course, I want to thank our guest, but I also want to thank you. I want to thank you for giving me what I consider the most valuable thing you can give, your time and your attention. And I know you don't do it to hear me. You do it for the great messages provided by the THSCA. And hey, if you'd like to associate your company with the THSCA and the Coach's Call podcast, limited sponsorship opportunities are available. You can reach out to me, Chris Daly, 713-269-4620, or head over to my website, freshmediaworks.com. Once again, thank you so much for supporting Texas high school coaches. Please share this show out to everybody you can so that we can help share these important messages. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time on The Coach's Call. The interviews in this show are brought to you by the Texas High School Coaches Association. THSCA provides to its more than 26,000 members access to the people, events, tools, and resources to help them thrive in the profession, become trusted leaders in their communities, and live balanced and successful lives. The work and sacrifice coaches do every day is vital to the development and success of student athletes. The THSCA supports these efforts. We fight for every coach, provide them with the connections and resources to improve their lives, and help all student athletes throughout the state enjoy lasting success. The mission statement is simply this: to help and serve Texas high school coaches as they work to help and serve student athletes. Helping coaches help kids. For more information on the THSCA, visit www.thsca.com.